Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation, though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery. Hey, Alan. So I got a nice wooded scene, fits the fall. You just got to watch what may be hiding.
Oh, exactly. The Sasquatch reveal as you leave, that's
Yes.
funny. I think this is the Great Wall of China, and I never associate having beautiful leaves around it and stuff like that. Usually they show it stark, but just
Right.
that looking for what one more fall scene here.
Right.
Okay.
So
So
what's been going on? What haven't we covered in the last couple weeks? What are we getting ready for fall? How was
so
your fest and all that?
it was really good. And it's fun. There's to be amongst a whole bunch of people that are fanatic about a certain thing, like when you go to a science fiction convention or a Comic Con or a spooky film festival or something, it's really cool. There's just a different, there's like an enthusiasm. Everybody is, and I guess because you're already into an on thing, there's like an acceptance thing going on. It's nice to be amongst your people. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's a sporting event where there's 80,000 of you. In this case, it was a couple thousand, but just the energy of it and there's a certain amount of, "Have you seen this?" You know what I mean? If you had people like, I don't know, I'm 65, I've seen lots of shows, and I'm not sure where this pride comes from, but, like, when you're able to say, "I did see Led Zeppelin," I that's that thing of being vintage, being well-traveled and well-seasoned and that kind of stuff. It's nice, like, there were a couple people where you mentioned a show, it's like, "I was at that show," and I like, you're from different cities and stuff, but lives have intersected.
Right.
All that is just the cool atmosphere of it, and a really nice thing, make sure Tom and I hope I don't get it wrong, and it should just pop out, they got married. They have been the showrunners of this since 2019, and they already were in love, but they have been careful in love, like many people are nowadays. If you've been previously married or have kids or whatever else it might be, there's complications to blending families or to just deciding, really, we're gonna cohabitate, but we're also gonna get like legally joined and stuff like that. So it was very sweet. It was at the very end of the festival, like 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And in fact, Pat Mastelotto, who is the drummer for one of the bands, Tuner, and has played with King Crimson and various other things. He's actually a registered deacon, so he can perform weddings. And so it was very sweet to see how many people stayed that late to make sure that they were there for the nuptials. And of course, there was music. They said there was a nice kind of an Irish ballad type love song that they sang for the wedding thing. And then the closing thing was an acoustic version of Song for America by Kansas. Because it really is an American success and love story to do this thing that you're passionate about and make it. They really have, I think they're just like regular people. But when you start to do a festival, you get to get on the phone and say, "Hey, Adrian Ballou, would you like to come play for us? Hey, Greg Lake," that kind of stuff. So it was very good. I have learned my lesson. Yeah, I'm what they call a producer. I get an early and the whole season type ticket, and then you get really close seats. But I don't like it when I'm like second row and depending on how the stage monitors are set up or depending on who's performing, I don't like the looking up people's kilts. You know what I mean? I like to have a little bit of stereo and a little bit of remove from that. So I made a point of getting back in eighth row and on the aisle in case I had to run to the bathroom, whatever else it might be. I had a really nice experience for the first half of the show and the seat next to me was empty for a long time. And then so either they didn't show up or they bought that ticket hadn't been sold or something like that. And then I had a jerk that decided that had to sit right next to me. I actually, instead of fighting the whole show, I retreated across the aisle and a few seats in. So a little bit more of an angle, but it's just so nice to lose yourself in the music instead of having the idiot on the phone and the idiot that really we're going to fight for an armrest on an airplane. Fuck is wrong with you? They're just like a bad concert goer. You know what I mean? And we are surrounded by them, as you and I have talked about. There's a sea of phones that are not just taking a picture or capturing their one favorite song, which I understand, But if they're filming the entire show is, you're right here, you could get the whole panorama instead of the postage stamp that you're recording this through. And are you going to send it to your friends who you're trying to prove this to? Like they didn't pay for the show. Why are you giving it to them? There's all those little things you can say about that. But just the act of having in the dark white that stop you from enjoying the stage, it gets old after a while. And people haven't learned to turn their phones off. So you actually get, though every performer makes that request, phones off, please don't interrupt. And then beep, boop, things go off. And I'm being a jerk by getting to all the negatives. The positive was, oh my God, so much great music. Discovered a band called Kairos that I was not familiar with that were, they're young and they're energetic and they have all the knowledge of what has gone before in Prague, but they're forging a new path. And it's a little bit more rock here and electronic there. And a good front woman had her hair dyed white and black on the side. So automatically had the, okay, maybe she's insane. But anyway, the Harlequin thing going on at least. Another band called Advent Horizon that I knew like next to nothing about. And in some cases, they get a lot of concentration of East Coast things because it's in New Jersey, Rutherford, New Jersey. But in this case, they were from the West Coast and they had people coming up like from Europe and stuff like that. Like I was saying, the bookers have really got an amazing good variety from all around the world. And every day there's shows at 2, 4, 6, 8. And actually they've learned to not space them so closely. So there's time for stage changeovers and stuff like that. And time for all of us elder rock people to go to the bathroom. But
Yeah, I have noticed when I go to the concerts that have the guys that were the hits in the 80s and 90s, as opposed to newer, that in between bands or when there was a break, the line for the men's room is actually something I've not really used to seeing.
that's right. Usually it's the ladies' room because there's a difference in quickness, in of privacy and anatomy and stuff like that. And yes, the guys was always out the door and down the hall. And I'm glad that I'm not hopping because I have to hold it. You just got to be patient. And that's some of the nicest conversations are when you're in the line to the bathroom. That's when you see somebody's shirt and say, oh, you saw Focus way back when, and whatever else it might be. So had a chance to like, I every time I've been, a woman named Rachel Flowers performed, and she's able to do fantastic, difficult things from Keith Emerson on the Tarkus album or whatever else it might be. And also her own original material, really beautiful voice, and also happens to be blind. So to see somebody pull off amazingly intricate keyboard things blind, it just is startling and impressive as all hell. Some people are made of music. They just have it flowing out of them. They connect in that way. She was beautiful and she was beautiful and her music was beautiful. And she like the people that what everyone wants to perform with her. You know what I mean? It's wow, I got someone that's an incredible virtuoso early in her career. It's cool to be able to have a taste of that. You know what I mean? To have that experience of she can play anything. And a guy from last year that was back this year named Dave Bainbridge, fantastic guitarist, keyboardist, multi-instrumentalist, but he was joined a group called Life Science. Maybe he was in them for a long time now that I really liked, and they were actually the last band of the night. And they have a song called Last One Home that is really good. And it isn't as complex as other prog, but it just found that perfect melody and it's haunting and it stays with you. They also played with Circuline, which is like another big, so imagine what he's got to have in his head to be able to do an hour and a half set with each of these guys of this complex music. And yet another guy, he has this incredible ability and he seems really humble and happy to be there. A lot of joy on stage. Sometimes when you go see hair metal bands, there's a lot of posturing. There's a lot. Judas Priest is like, they're angry still, even though they're like, what do you have to be angry about, Mr. 60-year-old millionaire? This thing has done you pretty well. But so to see that kind of, and also a guy named Mike Keneally, who has played with Zappa and his band Beer for Dolphins, and is in Project and stuff like that. And another guy that can play everything, and he's made a music, and he was like the utility infielder for the night. They had Gong, which if you've never heard Gong, they're really cool space rock, psychedelia and stuff like that. And I'm surprised when they came out on stage, like not the usual rack of keyboard. It was just mics with people who were going to play guitar and stuff like that in front of us. Like, boy, I thought that they had that. How do you do space rock without having weirdo keyboardizers and stuff like that? They do all these things on guitar. They have like little, what look to be glass rods that give you like glissando, almost like a slide, but very in that little theremin way or something almost. And in the middle of them making all this wonderful psychedelia, he comes out like second to last song and does a solo that would, and I even posted it. It's not beautiful, but it's incredible high energy and fits right in with the kind of music that they're doing, just like he did with various other bands that he chameleons himself into being able to do anything he wants. He's amazing.
Nice.
And at one point, a lot of the band, they were there for the entire week. They come out and sit in the audience and enjoy the other bands. And so he sat 2 seats away from me when I was off in my right side removed. And he was overhauling with everybody else because he enjoys everybody else's talents too. There's no brooding rock stars there. They're like so happy for music they're playing and the community they've created and stuff like that.
Nice.
And they hang out. So in the lobby of the Williams Center, you get a chance to just, not the usual when you're in line and you get a signature and hey, thank you so much, and on you move. You have real conversations. And so any number of people, like from on stage, would say, hey, I had a really nice chat with Arthur last night. Thanks so much, Arthur, for meeting me in the pub. Steve Hogarth was there, who was the lead singer from Marillion, and didn't perform, but did each morning an interview section. And he's really a good storyteller and witty and self-effacing, but it's very cool to get those insights into what goes on when Marillion is creating music. What was his early career like, and how did he get chosen to replace Fish, who was a pretty, I don't know, dominant vocalist? Very few bands have been able to do that. Maybe Van Halen becoming Van Hagar, where they continue to make great music instead of letting the air out of the tires when you lose your lead guitarist or your lead singer. You know what I mean?
Journey, another one.
Like that, Journey.
But arguably not as popular after they replaced Steve Perry. But I heard this newest guy earlier this year, and I thought he was fantastic, and I thought everything sounded wonderful.
Exactly. Yes has done that to a certain extent. John Anderson is really distinctive and irreplaceable, but John Davison and let's forget the French gentleman's name. They have done it where it wasn't like jarringly different, where you're like, okay, now they're a blues band, a prog band.
And then there's Genesis and Pink Floyd, who lost the lead guy, but someone else in the band stepped up.
He stepped up from behind the drum kit.
Yes.
That kind of thing. So I heard tons of music that I loved. And of course, they have merch table and they actually rotate things in and out. They have a couple big purveyors of stuff, Bandwagon and Band Shed, Burning Shed, maybe. I'm trying to think who was there that, like, you just heard a band, you loved them. Oh, they happen to have 3 CDs. Oh, I better get them. So I did indeed, honestly, or maybe this is, here's, probably I have twice as many of these. Here's a stack of, let's see, without going through that, I really did like enough things that I was not only then getting them at the place, and I still, that we've talked about, I used to be a $7 a CD guy, and now I've loosened that to be 10, but in this case, most of them were 15, but you're paying it, I think, mostly to the band.
Directly.
Places, exactly that. If they're not the band selling them directly, the divvy from an individual prog place is different than if you're just getting them from a more usurious place. And then I saw things out on Amazon, so I got a couple things on order to fill in my Kairos collection and unfortunately there's also, and this I've discovered, that as much as I like prog rock, it can go too far and be a little bit too discordant, and that everything is in 13/8, everything is. So there's a band called Tuner that is guys that used to play with King Crimson, and in a band called Stickmen as well with Tony Levin. And there's just not enough melody and singability, and like it's not a thing that you have. Not everything has to be verse, chorus, verse, the refrain, and that kind of stuff, but it has to have something that holds it together instead of just being. And now for our next series of disconnected magical tricks, we sure can play, but they don't seem to be able to write a song. And they are actually, because I liked all the guys in the band, I bought their CDs before I heard them. And I might not have done so after having heard them.
White Elephant Christmas gift.
Maybe that's it. I'll find someone that I know really loves them. Larry Wise, here they come. You know what I mean? There's people that they really like that kind of freeform jazz, and I find it interesting, but I don't know that I'm good. How many times will I play them? You know what I mean? When I'm in the mood for, and there's others, like you can't listen to deep industrial metal without being in the mood to get assaulted and yelled at and harsh guitars and stuff like that. And once in a while, I'm in that mood. It's a summer day and the windows are open and you just want to get all that energy. And other times it's 3 songs in, and I really feel like I'm having a fight with someone. I thought, "Well, no, I don't wanna have this."
Yeah, me and Colin talk about that, and we just talked about we went to a cover band show the other night, and we were
Okay.
talking about it that when we went to a Journey and Leopard, once Journey was done, the guy next to me leans over and goes, "The best musicians of the night left. We should probably all just go home." And I'm like, dude, you can have Yngwie Malmsteen was just so highly regarded as a guitar player, but unless you're a musician, you don't know who it was because yes, he and all that, but that's all he could do. And it's not a musical song. There's a reason Bon Jovi hit the charts and did so well, and Yngwie did not. And people
That's
don't
a great way to put it.
understand that. And how many times have you heard these virtuosos that people are like, oh, what are they playing in that band for? They're such a great musician because that band pays money.
Because they can write songs that they can play those solos in the middle of instead of it being like I've been to G3 a couple times. That's where they get 3 great guitarists. They're often the virtuosos that you refer to. And unfortunately, a lot of that is, wow, I admire the guy's talent, but I can't think of a single song. I'm going to go humming myself on the way home. Steve Vai is great, but has that a little bit. Joe Satriani has that. Eric Johnson, Alan Holdsworth. There's all kinds of people that I just so much admire their craft and their notes per second, if you will, but they don't have that. Neil Morse has the ability to play really complex things, but also writes a great song. I regularly come away with the refrain in my head, and then when I hear it again on the album, it's, oh, that was that great song that I really liked, and now I know the whole thing because I wasn't paying
Right.
attention when I first heard it. Stuff like
And
that.
many of these people that make these comments, they're not musicians, number one. Number two, they talk about these great virtuosos, but then you ask them, do you own all their albums, their music? Oh, no, I don't. Then shut up.
Yeah, it's the one album that I like, and that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And then so if you had the opportunity to either be a virtuoso guitarist that nobody heard of and hardly anyone listened to, or in a popular band that made millions of dollars, you'd choose the virtuoso. Yeah, most people would not. Let's be truthful. And some of the really smart ones that really want to do more, they get into that band, they make that money, they love that, and then they do their own side stuff, their own solo stuff, however they want, because they don't have to survive on that.
Yeah. The saga was there, which never really broke out of Canada into the United States, though they are regularly like a big theater and arena rock thing, depending on where you are. And so, like, they had a song called On the Loose that is really actually one of my favorite songs. One of those things that's the first thing on the album. And as I also, from the needle drop, it's like high energy and it's beautiful. It's melodic and it's got just the right structure to the song so that it doesn't just hit you with the energy. It actually builds. And like the end, you drop your air guitar that you've been playing because it got so hot. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Michael Sadler was there and the rest of Saga. Like I mentioned, Gong. The first opening night was Abacab, which is a group that does old Genesis. And old Genesis is not easy and it's also not as often played because even Genesis can't pull things off or they don't want to. You know what I mean? They moved on to, they're more, when you have a bunch of commercial hits, that sure is what the crowd wants to hear. They're happy to hear deep cuts, but they want to hear Jeff Lynne did the ELO albums concentrating on the ones that had tons of radio play and that they're still great songs, but they weren't the more art rock, orchestral rock from earlier in their career. So the audience is cool because they're very accepting of the deep cuts and that they, whatever the band wants to play, they want to hear, but you can still tell when everybody's head is bobbing, okay, they really do know this particular King Crimson tune or this Gong tune or whatever else it might be. David Cross band played and they did all of Lark's Tongues and Aspic, the whole album, and they had this, to me, the same difficulty that they had. We had actually just seen him in Cleveland because I really wanted to hear King Crimson music. And there's a section in that album that goes really slow and not as good. It's ponderous instead of being a good dynamics for where they play with the volume and the speed and whatever else it might be. And in this case, because I just sat back and didn't have expectations, I already knew what was coming. Then when they finally get past that slow section into Easy Money, Talking Book, and Large Tongues and Aspic Part 2, for those who are King Crimson fans, you'll know what I'm talking about, then it really was, okay, they finish well. You know what I mean? And in fact, besides Progstock, I just drove to Cincinnati to see, drove in a day, saw the show, slept overnight, came back, Beat, which is, I'm all about King Crimson today. It's the recreation of those 3 Crimson albums that came out in the early 80s where King Crimson had gone comatose and you didn't know what they were going to do next. It's always been Robert Fripp, but he has played with different sets of musicians, and he really has a muse that I've heard a quote from him that says, King Crimson forms when there is music that only King Crimson could play. And sometimes there isn't that. And so it goes quiescent for a while. So this is discipline and beat and three of a perfect pair. And unfortunately, what they did was there's dynamics on those albums, but the first half of the show before the intermission was more deep cuts and less energy and less, I guess I'm on that today, less melody. And then the second half of the show made up for that. It was elephant talk and indiscipline and things that yes, you did get some radio play, that kind of thing. But they should have, in my opinion, sprinkled those amongst each others so that the show itself had ebb and
It
flow,
does.
top like waves to it. And so to get all that energy in the second half and make up for the fact that the first half was, okay, get to it, you guys. And they're all, again, it was Steve Vai, fantastic guitarist, but so is Adrian Belew. And instead of Adrian Belew is very interesting because instead of just being how fast can I play it? Well, how many notes can I fit in here? He really is amazing with how he handled his guitar. He makes noises with the guitar that you're like, what? Who else can do that? Makes whale noises, makes the sound of an oncoming train, whatever else it might be. An apocryphal story that I've heard about him is he was identified early young by Frank Zappa seeing him in a bar. And so he invited him to tour. I think he was like 17. And I think even on the album, he was called like Stunt Guitar or Impossible Guitar. That was his liner note. David Bowie invited him to tour with him and stole him from Zappa, which made for bad blood between, and they handed him the Bowie catalog and said, well, learn to play these things. And so he did, but a lot of the stuff wasn't guitar. It was very Brian Eno treated guitar or synthesized or keyboards, like guitar fed into a keyboard, whatever else it might be. And he came back able to play everything. But how? You don't have the rigs that Brian Eno used. They used to call it treatments. That was how Brian Eno was often labeled, treatments. And yet he only got four knobs right on the guitar and whatever else you could do, maybe with some pedals. And yet he was able to create magic out of this guitar. So it's very cool to watch him play because he really, some people, they play, I don't know, Robin Trower doesn't look at his guitar while he plays. He's just so connected with his instrument. And Baloo kind of looks at it, but how did he played around until he got, this is going to sound like a steam horn, I'm sorry, a foghorn or something like that. And I love that he can do that. And I'm sure that other people have tried to be his successor. And I don't know anybody else that does what he can do with all of the cool things he does.
Vi does quite a bit of that.
Okay. Yep. That's the fact that they, just like Baloo and Fripp, when they were doing it originally, they had to find a guy that could play Fripp stuff, which is often very fast, but also like theme and variations, kind of Bachian, where there's a difficult thing, but then you do it slightly different and you return it into that kind of thing. You make a musical experiment and a loop out of it. And Vi can do all those things. And when he would tear into a solo, he was also like, remember, do you see a movie called Crossroads where he
Oh,
played
yeah.
the devil?
Ralph Macchio.
Like, you know, they ranks out for Macchio was like, I know you fake because there's no way that you could beat Steve. Now it was, and Tony Levin and let's see, Danny Carey from Tool were the other two members of the band, and they're also great musicians. So it's always cool just to see four people can put out all that music, and they all had a chance to like a little bit of a bass solo, a little bit of a drum solo, but very much always in service to the music. And so I really like that show, except for sometimes we just watched a documentary last night about Bruce Springsteen and how for his last tour, he really, oftentimes before he'd do a tour, the band would like play around and see what feels right to play now. And the set list would almost morph every single night, that he'd invite requests from the audience and stuff like that. In this case, he had a 27 song set list in his head for here's what I want to say at this time in history and with my age and with this band. And then people have that idea of the musical journey they're going to take you on and how to do the pacing so that there really is the dynamic parts are that much more effective if you slow it down a little bit and then you break into wow, God, y'all, that kind of thing. That just, it was an exercise in there really are people that don't just do the individual songs, but have an idea of the entire night and how they want it to go and how they're communicating with the audience and feeding off their energy. And there's the difference between a single and an album in a lot of ways. A lot of bands really have always put together albums, and it really was, you have to have a good opener when it was side A and side B, and you want to hit a big climax at the end of the album and whatever else it might be. bathed in good music over these last couple of weeks. After
Nice. Yeah.
a little bit of a drought, there's not that many prog bands that tour around anymore. I got to go on a prog stock or on my prog cruise to get this full immersive experience. And that's what I got. It was really nice. So
Nice.
it's all right.
Nice.
Boy, I know I've done all the talking and I
No.
apologize. That's when you come back from prog stock, it's like, I can't think about this because it's the greatest. And like I said, it's very
Right.
sad. Here with you here. Let's see. Big Train was not there, but they had a performance they did live in London that I got like the CD box set. And they're very interesting because their songs really are stories. You know what I mean? They tell you all about how they built the Thames Barrier or something like that, that they really, but in a very melodic and big way. And I not only did I find things from the bands that were there, but they had like extensive racks of stuff. Didn't go through it A to Z because I was really worried, like, oh my God, I'm already buying so much stuff. And I'm okay about money. And yet it's really weird to be coming home with a backpack, a heavy backpack.
And like you said, with the one group, you might grab some and then you listen to it and it's, I'm never going to listen to it again. Was it worth it?
Yeah. Yeah. I have some things in the collection that I really, at one point, in order to free up some space in the racks, I really have to go through and keep track of my iTunes things and say, how long has it been since I listened to this? And in some cases, it's only because not of dislike, but neglect. Oh, I really do like that band, but I just think fell off my radar for a while. And there's other things you can ask that question. Am I really going to ever listen to this? My mood is like this once a year, where there's other things like Thomas Dolby, Astronauts and Heretics, that whenever I don't know what else I want to listen to, I put on that one because it's quality, solid, good stuff throughout, that
Right.
kind of.
We had some music Friday. So busy weekend for me. Friday, me and Colin went to a couple cover bands show at Goodyear. They weren't our favorites ever. There was some musicalness that just wasn't quite there, but it was Van Halen and Journey and Bon Jovi. We had a good night.
That's their hit factories. You'll hear a lot of stuff that you like, that you
Yeah.
recognize, as long as they can pull it off.
Yeah, there was some. Again, I've been to multiple these type of shows in the last year, and these just weren't the top level guys. We had fun though. Saturday was Adam's sale for Halloween, and they had some artists there and some animals to play with, a hedgehog and stuff. Colin dressed up as the penguin. He had a vintage tuxedo he got. Yeah, he's walking around. He's going,
Holder.
yeah, he had that.
Cool.
He had the fake candy cigarettes,
Right.
but he looked really good. But there was an artist that did a denim jacket and drew a Pennywise on the back, and they had a raffle, and the money was for Children's Hospital or something like that. And I said, okay, I got to make sure and join that raffle because that'd be cool to win and give it to Colin. And then I forgot all about entering it after I was going through and doing everything and left. And he came home that night and he goes, hey, I got you something. And he held it up. He won it in the raffle.
Oh, that's so cool.
So,
Good for you.
yeah,
Good for
it's
him.
nice.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then Sunday, we had our annual horror-thon. We watched our annual horror movies. A good weekend. Yeah.
I have not been summoning Halloween a lot. I've watched maybe one a week instead of there's tons of streaming services that they have a whole category. And we talked a little bit, there's horror movies often, this is when they make it into the ticket things. Smile 2 was top of the box
Right.
office last week and stuff like that. So I kind of like that when if you're going to have the summer blockbuster around July 4th, then make sure you get your Halloween movies around Halloween. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nosferatu comes out on Christmas Day, which I think we talked a little bit about.
Exactly.
I'm not going to see it that day, but I am going to see it. I'm interested.
That'll be great.
So did you go see Venom yet?
I have not. And I don't know how to account for this. I've really fallen off that must see every Marvel and DC movie right when it comes out, but I will. And it might be that there's some Colleen will still enjoy and go with me, or that we'll get the boys together and go. And yet I don't know, Venom has never been one of my favorite characters. He's one of those guys like Ghost Rider that I don't get his amazing popularity because I think he's like a one-trick pony. And in fact, when they did, I have to learn more. They did a whole thing with he's not a singleton. He's part of the symbiote race that came from far away and invaded kind of Earth and maybe even our universe or our solar system. And so maybe there's more going on there. Dark King, the Emperor in Black. I'm trying to think of what I've seen the titles for that.
All of those things are in this movie.
Okay. One of the things I am willing to suspend my disbelief in so many different ways when I see movies like that. And yet the first time they started showing in comic books that Eddie Brock gets the symbiote on him after Spider-Man had collected it during Secret Wars. And then all of a sudden his face gapes wide, or his body moves in ways that it would break your skeleton type stuff. And I just don't like that. I don't like that they could have just made him scary, that this thing on you, this film that gives you strength and perhaps better agility and stuff like that. But really, it makes it so that you're all goo inside so that you can like be Plastic Man making these contortions and stuff. I don't know. That somehow doesn't work for me. And that's a big part of the character. Every third cover of Venom is the gaping mouth or do you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just, I don't know why that seems unrealistic to me compared to other things going on.
Yeah, you really want to get technical about it,
I'm
but
aware that it's a problem of mine, not everybody else, but you know what I mean?
once you go see it, we'll chat about it because they really made it seem like it's the last one of the trilogy of the series.
Okay,
So we'll see what happens.
got it. I've seen Tom Hardy in any number of other things, so I'm looking for. He has an intensity, you know what I mean? He's really got some like tortured hero chops and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, we saw it. We'll talk about it.
All right. All right.
So what else is going on? You doing anything else for Halloween?
We're going to Chicago for the big Halloween party. And
Nice.
honestly, I've been so busy. We're doing the theme for this year for Halloween is road tripping. And so Colleen and I are finally doing our presentation on the capital idea. Way long ago on our honeymoon, we stopped on the way to Bar Harbor in Montpelier, Vermont, and it was the perfect state capital, perfect dome, the perfect gardens and steps leading up to it and stuff like that. And we just said, this is where every state really does it up. We should go see every one of these. And from that throwaway remark, we then did. We've been to 48 out of 50, everything but Alaska and Hawaii. And so this is a big travelogue of here's where all we were. And even though the capital is the scaffolding for all of this, all of the other cool things that we did. So we've been to these cool national parks, and here's the silly biggest ball of twine type stuff. We really embrace that. When I'm planning these trips, I do all that look of what's the thing that I'm going to see in Nebraska that it isn't just a drive-through state. It's got cool things. So is Nebraska where they have car henge, or is that Oklahoma? You know what I mean? Or like I found, we have found not only by planning, but by luck, all kinds of, we've been to the Spam Museum. We've been to, Colleen really loves the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. And so we've been to any number of sites that are where those things were based, like DeSmet. You know what I mean? DeSmet, South Dakota. What? I've never even heard of DeSmet. And yet we're going to do a real barnstorming run through of all of our photos of look at here, look at this is the Grand Canyon, click. And this, we'll have both of us, a running commentary, bouncing off of us in the audience. And that has unfortunately taken a ton of work. Without going into it too much, every time you switch computers, there's a possibility that some things get left behind. And things like big music libraries or big photo libraries, unless you're very active about moving it forward, they stay behind. So when I realized that I have on my current rig, going back to 2010, but I know I've been taking digital photos, even with a camera instead of the iPhone, back to when I first could, when they had little memory chips that you had to make sure you brought extra because you'd fill them up. And so I've been having to play that technology game of, do I have a way that I can read this? Can I attach this? If it's an old Firewire, maybe I've been trying to make sure that I could rescue what things I could. And in some cases it has proven to be, I know it's out there, but I can't find it. Then you're like, I want to show this. So we're going to go on the net. The net has every photo ever. So you can find, here's a picture of the state capitol. And though we're not standing on the front steps, it's a really cool state capitol. And we wanted to make sure that we shared that with you.
You could ask AI to make one with you guys in the picture.
And that's true. I could get us superimposed and no one need be the wiser.
Of course, then that means you and Colleen are in the public domain. So
that's true. We don't want our images to then be appropriated. What are you guys doing for Halloween? Do you have a big decoration set, or are you going to school? What's going on with you?
Yeah, the last couple of years, it's been a little less. It's been a little more sparse. Colin's been busy. I've been busy doing, me and Casey have done so much stuff with all the soaps and that it took a lot of weekends. It gets dark earlier after working. And so we really haven't done as much. I didn't even put my father's decorations out this year because those big wood things, it's just tiring to carry them all out.
Get them out of the barn and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we haven't done a whole lot. And we were talking about what we're going to do for Thanksgiving and Halloween. We might do a friend's Thanksgiving on Saturday. Colin might invite some people over in that. And where we want to do, we might go down to Cambridge for Christmas, not Christmas Day, but they do a Dickinson type Christmas down there.
Yeah, the whole town square, right, is all really nicely decorated, and they have roving character
Yeah,
actors do it. We are thinking of doing that as well. We could try to coordinate if you can.
sure.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I know I took the kids many years ago, so we'll see about doing that, but really don't have a whole lot of holiday plans. I know we've got a lot of shows we're doing for the soaps, trying to push our holiday soaps and that's really it, you know?
We went to visit my younger brother 3, 4 weeks ago now, and coming back on 70 as you cross from the border of Indiana into Ohio, there's a really cool place called Warm Glow. Have you ever been there? It's a candle shop, and, like, the
Oh,
biggest one you've ever seen. It's got, like, multiple rooms, and they make every single so similar, if you will, to soaps. They're like, "Okay, what's a good scent that people will not mind having in the air around them?" And so we never get out of there without having half a dozen new ones that are this is the pumpkin bread scent. This is we really like homey things and sometimes holiday things. So we'll have a little pine scent. We've learned our lesson with sometimes it smells good in the candle, but you got to think, okay, if you had to deal with this for 4 to 6 hours, is this is it going to get cloying or is it going to be
right,
fresh and stuff like that? Some things have little sparkles in the candle itself. Then it puts like soot into the air almost or something like that. And we don't want to have where my eyes hurt because the candle has been creating
right.
ejecta like a volcano. So it's very just very fun to like go around and maybe your guests do this when you're selling your soap. They all have very distinct scents, but if you smell 10 of those, after a while, your nose gets tired and you're not maybe not catching the bayberry as much as you were the
Right,
initial Sasquatch scent or something like that. So,
right.
but that'll be one of the things we like about when it starts to get cold and you stay inside more, a hugga thing, and it's HYGE, the Scandinavian. It's you get your throw pillows out and your comforters and your candles, and it just is so nice. Be like, we're gonna curl up and watch some TV. We're gonna read a book. We don't have a fireplace, but we can get at least our candle going and stuff like that. And it's very nice to have a nice, toasty, warm,
Yeah.
safe
That
house.
that is if it gets cold, we're supposed to have 75s for the next couple days. It's almost November. We're having 75-degree weather. That's stupid.
We, Colleen and I often say this kind of ruefully, global warming is just devastating the planet in so many ways. We're really in trouble with ocean levels rising and our reefs are bleaching and we're losing entire ecosystems and stuff like that. But Cleveland is doing great. It's had milder weather. We've had better winters and not terrible summers that go with that. We seem to get more weird perturbations where the Arctic will send like a finger down and it'll get really cold for 2 or 3 days because when you don't have your nice lateral bands, but you actually get more affected, the jet stream changes and all that kind of stuff. Cleveland has had better weather, milder everything. And so it's wow, of all the nation, I'm sorry that we're the recipient, but I'm not sorry because I'm in the middle of it. I'm sorry that Arizona had 100 days in a row of 100-degree heat. Like it's killing people. And they have bigger hurricanes and more wildfires and stuff like that. I'm sorry that it's affecting other places more, but we really seem to be like pretty soon we're going to have people moving here. And then we're going to watch just like Portland's real estate went up when all the internet millionaires said, I'm tired of the crush of San Francisco. I'm going to go where I can work remotely and in a beautiful place where I can look at Mount Hood every day. Is
Right.
it Mount Shasta? I'm trying to think which is Portland and which is Seattle. Anyway, I am digging the fact that we got a great lake just 3 blocks away. We got fantastic weather. We got beautiful fall colors. The drive down to Cincinnati and back and over to New Jersey and back, all the way through Pennsylvania. It was just like uh, mountain ridge after mountain ridge. Oh, beautiful colors. It was fantastic. And I love it. I'm
Yeah.
an orange and red and yellow type guy. And to get that in profusion is really cool. You have beautiful colors out in Rootstown. I mean, you,
On our property, it's mostly pines and firs, so we don't have a whole lot of leaves that change. But
okay.
yeah, there's a lot driving around. My mother likes to drive down around certain areas. She'll get my aunt, and they'll go look at all the leaves. Of course, it's so funny. Their sister-in-laws, even though neither of them have husbands anymore, they're still family, and they're so different. My mother, let's go look at the leaves. We'll drive down through the country. We'll check out all this, and she's happy with driving to look and going here and this valley because it's all the trees and looks and stuff. My aunt's, yeah, let's go do that. Let's stop at all these little stores, all these little shops and go shopping. And both of them look at the other like, why do we want to do what you want to do? That doesn't.
Yeah. That's Colleen and I are very well matched in that we love doing the big seeing things. And if we stop at apple cider, let's get some nice warm apple cider with a little swizzle stick of cinnamon there. We seem to match in terms of our when we want to stop and for what, that it really isn't only shop or do no shopping at all. You know what I mean? We're good about that. In fact, that's one of the things we're going to talk about with road tripping is that if you're looking to vet a relationship, take like a weekend long trip,
Yeah.
see how you are when it's not date night, 4 hours, you're on best behavior, but when you're really together all the time, and how's your moods and how's your bathrooms and how's your all of those things, that it really is a good thing when you're compatible and not having to have things a certain way, because you can't do a road trip without plans don't survive contact with the enemy. You know what I mean? You go to a place and it's got a big, no, we're closed for the season sign. It's what was that was our plan. What are we going to do now? We have survived all kinds of, most of our road trips have been really nice in terms of weather and planning ahead, where only once in a while have we been bitten by, oh, that's right, it might be open on the weekend, but we're here on Monday. Oh, bad timing. And how you handle it. And do you
Yeah.
run out of stuff to talk about in the car, or do you make puns about every little sign? And do you enjoy seeing little animals on the side of the road and all that stuff? It was a really good sign early. We liked doing those things, and also had that the timing of it, the pacing of it. I've said this too many times. We stop every 2 hours for a tink and a drink. You know what I mean? You don't want your hips to seize up. You don't want to get that car claustrophobia. You
Yeah.
just need to get up and stretch a little bit, get some fresh air,
Well,
change your focal length. You know what I mean?
AAA recommends every 90 minutes,
Oh,
regardless.
there we're Iron Men then. We're on.
Yeah. And it's and no matter what I love people that say, oh no, we're not stopping at all. We're doing 6 hours and we're gonna make it. No matter what your willpower is, the human body can only do so much. Your concentration can only go for so long. And you really do lose a lot of your driving ability, but you don't realize it after all that time.
That's right. I never want to put us in danger. I want to be crisp. You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
how I'm paying attention and stuff like that. And also having just had to go use the restroom, it's really undignified when you've gone so long and you haven't gone to the bathroom. And the minute you get up out of the car and whatever control you've been able to maintain by sitting down, then all of a sudden you're like dancing in the parking lot. I have to get to the outhouse now. And I don't want to do that anymore. I never
Right.
want to do that.
And a lot of times you got to enjoy the whole trip and journey, not just let's get there. That's really the stereotype that the dad, the whole family going on vacation. The dad's like, all right, we're driving all night so we can be there at 8 a.m. and everybody's going to be exhausted and tired, but we're going to be there. I discovered what's the fun in getting there if you're so worn out from the trip that you can't enjoy it when you do get there.
That's exactly. We built long ago, I think Steve Jobs, the journey is the reward. And we really act like that. We almost always, we don't wing it. We get hotel reservations for everywhere we're going to go. They'll check you in at 11 o'clock at night, the same as they would at 3 in the afternoon. So during the day, every time that we see a mini golf course, an ice cream place, a scenic vista. We had a real problem with being on the Smoky Mountain Parkway, going that they had so many scenic vistas that we ended up not meaning to, but being like 4 hours late, because everywhere that we got out, it was like, it's a different vista. That was the hills with the smoke on them. Now it's wild turkeys. Now it's a rushing river and stuff like that. And yet, if you appreciate all those things, there's overhead, there's time associated with that. So
Yeah.
we've gotten wiser about one of the things it's funny, this is a little bit of a prelude to travel tips we've learned from our things. If you're heading west and the sun is like spiking you in the eyes, how about if that's when you get and go have dinner and wait for the sun to go down in an hour and a half or something like that, and then get back on the road? And it might be that you're not going to see as much because now it's dusk going into night, but it wasn't that like painful. And sometimes the sun can be so bright that you can't see the road as well. That's dangerous as hell. Every time that people cross the Valley View Bridge, I can see that people could really get in a bad way if they're at the wrong time of day.
Yeah.
It's right at that angle. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
so I have to, so what have we learned section of my presentation is going to be expensive because these are all things we want to pass along.
Top 10 tips for travel.
That's right. That's right.
So have you played, I haven't played any more Hogwarts this past week, so we'll talk about, but have you gotten any games lately, like board games? I have been so out of playing games. Our usual first Friday night, I've missed the last two. I know Amber, a friend of mine from Menta, she goes to a lot of the Akron board gamers, and I haven't been able to make any of those. I've been like completely out of touch with playing board games.
Yeah. Honestly, we've intended to go to both ecoms down south and cams. Honestly, like 4 or 5 months now, I've said yes. And then on the day of, we had to say, oh, this thing came up, or we were realizing we don't have enough time to do that and be ready for something we got to do Monday. So I've been really terrible. If they're counting on my being one of the butts in seats and that gets the numbers up, Colleen and I've had to pull back any number of times. So we have indeed missed games days. And that really that's a really wonderful way to spend time with friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
4 to 6 hours of not only one big game, but multiple games. People break off, and depending on whether they want to play the card world building game or the trivia game or whatever else it might be. And so having said that, we really don't have anything except for planning on Christmas and what I learn about from mind games that will be things to buy for my family and stuff like
Right.
that. We'll get into it again, maybe as it gets colder. Colleen and I will break out and we'll play more Scrabble, more, one of the things that's got is we got cards, the delve card. They're like the book of questions. It asks open-ended leading questions. And then, I sit on the love seat and she on the couch. And so I don't know, if you won $1 million, but it meant a friend had to die, would you take it? You know what I mean?
Can we name the friend?
That can I choose the friend? But,
Yeah.
but we're like together 20 plus years now. And you always go for that thing. I didn't know you were in the circus. You know what I mean? You want to get that wonderful, like the story just never came up. So sometimes these cards will spur a story from you name it. We're very young and in family or into high school or college or into early work life or just things that you don't know everything about each other. We have had full enough lives in some ways that I'd be surprised if we did know everything. Or that it's just my perspective on things at 65 is different than when I was 15. So you
Right.
think back of, we use the phrase often, I was so young. You know what I mean? You just don't have enough life under your belt. You have a certain naivete and a certain cavalier. I never have ever meant to be cruel, but sometimes when you think of, man, a moment's thought, a moment's consideration, and that situation wouldn't have gotten as weird as it was
Yeah.
between friends, between enemies, between whatever else it might be. So sometimes it's nice to talk through those things because it gives you an idea of another great quote along the lines of, if you're beautiful at 21, it's a gift from the heavens. If you're beautiful at 61, that's your own doing. You know what I mean? If you've got laugh lines instead of crow's feet or whatever else it might be. So it's really been our putting up our Christmas tree, or now that we've been doing this road tripping thing, many of these things spark memories. And it's nice to think back of not only the thing you did, but who you were at the time and how I think I was appreciative back then, but should we have stayed an extra day there? Because we had a little bit of that. No, we got to get out back on the road. We got a trip schedule here. And sometimes it's, well, we said we were going to go back there and now it's 20 years. How? You know what I mean? We've only been to Banff, Canada once in our times together. And wow, I want to go multiple new places, but that's the most beautiful place I've ever been. And I would go back there. That's my Thomas Dolby, right? Given that I don't know where else to go to the Canadian Rockies and just see endless beauty and
Yeah.
go for hikes and everything. You know what I mean? Be
Right.
worried about the Sasquatches and the bears, but otherwise you get just,
If you see a Sasquatch, give me a picture.
exactly. Yeah, it'll always be blurry and moving to the right.
That must be a Sasquatch. That's how they look.
That's how they look. Exactly.
So I haven't gotten to play hardly any games, and I'm starting to get a little like Jonesy. That's why I did it. So I just got a notice in my email that a Kickstarter I had backed long ago now for an expansion to Star Realms is now shipping. So
Finally,
Star
that's
Realms is
good.
one of my favorites because I love the deck builders, and it's a quick, simple deck builder. You can get anybody into this one with very little time having to be spent explaining. It's
And you don't have to have 300 out of 500 cards to get a good game going. You can
right.
Okay.
Yeah, the original comes with just a standard deck of cards like box, maybe a little thicker, and boom, you're off for two people. So I'm excited about that. I had forgotten all about it because some of these have been getting a little slower since COVID to get out. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, I'm going to get some people and we'll play some Star Realms. I've got new cards. But then on the flip side, I just bought the expansion for the Star Wars deck builder. from a couple years ago, which I love
Yeah.
deck builders and I love Star Wars. So you're like, oh, that should be perfect. It was not a good game. It just, you want a deck builder that you can have multiple strategies and try different things depending on the setup. But this one was literally, there are three types of cards. There's light side cards, dark side cards, and mercenary cards. And you're only allowed to buy light and mercenary or dark and mercenary. So if the buying pool, the shop area, has almost all dark cards and you're the light side player, you're screwed. Too bad.
Yeah, you can't add to that's a big oversight. If they're going to try to make it that it's a balanced game, and maybe people's instinct is, I want to be the paladin, I want to be the good guy, then, but you have to make it so that the dark side is interesting enough,
Right.
sell equally so that there's true competition.
Right. So we were hoping they'd come out the expansion and fix a few little things and, it would make it a little better. No, not at all. So the original was light and dark side, the rebels and the empire. That was the two sides. This new one, everything's identical, except now it's the republic and the separatists. The rules are the same. The cards, it's basically now you have 4 different factions to choose from instead of just the 2. And still, they even talk about if you choose like empire and separatists, you have to get the cards that are only separatists and only empire and then mix them together. And that didn't fix a single thing.
Oh man. Oh, that's unfortunate. The Venn diagram of you like deck building games and you like Star Wars should have been, and instead they didn't.
It's this, at least as far as the enjoyment goes. There's no crossover in that enjoyment. So we'll see. But on the flip side, I need to find some people and get some Thunderstone campaigns going. I was looking at it, and since I got the 3rd version of Thunderstone, the Thunderstone Quest, there has been multiple expansions. And I got one a while back and I said, oh, God, another one I'd forgotten all about because it's been like a year and a half. I open it up and it's campaigns 16, 17, and 18. And I'm like, 18? I played 5 of them.
Right. What happened? That I lost
like,
track. Yeah. I will say this. So I flew down to Cincinnati, met my brother there coming up from Bloomington, where we saw Beat together. We talk about similar things. He mentioned that his daughter he plays still World of Warcraft, and so does the daughter, but she also has been playing Diablo 4. And so I can't play it because it's Windows only. He goes, oh no, she's on a Mac. It's been out for the Mac for a while. So, yeah, why wasn't there a huge email that pounded out of my screen saying now available for
nice.
Another one of those things about let it get nice and cold, because we laughed about this last time. Sometimes it's so nice. I've been busy with working on our presentation, working on getting ready for a wedding, working on cataloging things. But once in a while, when you get to a nice quiet point that all those things don't have to happen that weekend, I just love that Friday, like at 11 o'clock at night, Alina and I have had our date night and everything's fine and she's going to go crash. But I dive into a big game of Civilization. In this case, when I get Diablo 4 and start off with,
nice,
what's this all about? And it's the new maps and it's the new character types. I love that. And now that I know that it's available, instead of the kind of, why are they not doing it multi-platform? It's just because I don't keep track of every single thing, and they didn't splash it at me enough for me to become aware.
Right.
Now I know that for $40, $50, whatever the infinite replayability of Diablo 4 will be. And they have the same thing where already they have West is not quite the right word. They have seasons, and they this is a season where treasure has doubled, but it's also harder to get. We've introduced some new, and like every time that happens, there's just enough difference. They're really good at sizing things and making sure that it's all still compatible while being enough different that you got to pay attention. I love being led through that. And in Diablo 3, I think they're up to 30 something seasons.
Wow.
That's a lot of time for the life of a game to have continued to make it interesting to crazy players like me who like the game mechanics, the perfect balance, all that. So I have Diablo 4 to look forward to. I think I might ask for it for a Christmas gift, but then if it comes early, well, I might not leave it under the tree. I might have to break into it. I don't know. It doesn't have to happen with all that goes on November, December, and we're going to be busy with getting our advent calendars out and whatever else it might be. And maybe it'll be January. You know what I mean? Now I know that there's next to nothing going with the first quarter of the doldrums. And that's when I'm going to go upstairs with a trucker's friend and an IV. Don't call me for 2 days. Because
I got a buddy. We've always liked the isometric adventurous games, Baldur's Gate being one of the ones. And the newer Baldur's Gate 3 is out, and he's been playing that. And he loves Diablo. He still plays Diablo. He's played all sorts of RTS and stuff. He's playing Baldur's Gate 3, and he's been playing it for a while. He's a trucker, so he's gone all week, and he plays it in his truck on his laptop every night, and just been months. Another friend of ours, their daughter goes to Kent, but because of the costs of living in the dorm, she lives with him basically because he's, look, I got a spare bedroom. I'm not here Sunday through Friday night.
Yeah, it's like you have your own place, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So she rents from him so she can go to Kent. But he was playing Baldur's Gate and complaining because there was something he couldn't figure out. She goes, "Oh, here's a trick. Let me tell you." And he's like, "How do you know that?" She's like, "Oh, I've been playing it since it came out." And it's just, his
it
reaction
never
was,
comes up until then.
it's so funny because just his look was, here's this 20-year-old girl playing it. And this is something he thinks of as from our generation, but it's not anymore. And it was just very funny that he got that slap of reality.
It's funny. Bruce said the same things, that his daughter, Relina, that World of Warcraft very much is guilds and parties and doing things like that. And in some ways, he and I both tend to be loners in that way. I really like to not have to coordinate with other people. I don't mind it. I'm actually good at being a team player or even being a team leader. But once in a while, what I want, we talked about this before, I like to work at my own pace, and my pace is a little faster, if not a lot faster than most other people. So I don't want to have to explain or convince, justify why I'm going to do a certain thing because it's based on, I've been playing for 3 years and odds are that this is the best way to go, even though there's some risk involved. Because then if you've got people that are risk averse, you can't get them to do it, even if the reward is high. So when he has occasionally done things, like he and his daughter will see each other online and they'll make a point of, even if they're playing similar characters and stuff, they don't team up because they leave that to each other. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they've done, father, daughter, Logan, and, young Wolverine type stuff, but even space. And I think that's
Interesting.
kind of a cool thing. So
Yeah.
anyway, once in a while you see somebody online and their nickname, they're so distinctive that you're like, I bet you that's that friend from college, but would they not like it if I poke after not having talked to each other for 30 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I ran into a bunch of people on Facebook in 2010 during the whole divorce fiasco. You should check it out.
Very good.
Yep, it's getting time to go.
Very good. As always, happy fall and happy Halloween. And there's no Halloween candy in the house yet. I don't think we're going to do it. There might be some things at Halloween that I'll have to give myself a treat of $100,000 bar. Fun size only.
We got Chips Ahoy and pizza for the Horathon on Sunday. So that covered me for a while. It's like, I better do some exercising and stuff than knock those carbs down and knock the numbers down.
Kelly and I have used this lately for whatever reason. Mark Maron has a great line of, when you're an addict, other people don't have the idea of what it's like to have an itch and finally scratch it. You know what I mean? If you really like deep dish pizza and you deny yourself that, and then you finally have the perfect pie from Pizzeria Uno or Illuminati's, and they serve that slice up in that first triangular bite, it's just, oh my God, I'm going to cry. Just like that for certain things. You know what I mean? So we're both being strong. We're both about changing them, and yet you don't fall off the wagon and kill yourself. You have a little indulgence, and then you go back to good life.
Right. Make your choices.
That's right. Okay.
All right, man.
A pleasure. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Mm-hmm.
You have been listening to the Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week to join Alan and Steven's conversation on geek topics of the week.